Welcome back to the To Be Fit podcast. My name is Brian Bott. Today I'm joined by Dr. Jeremy Dinkin, a top sports chiropractor helping athletes recover smarter and perform better. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, I know you just opened your own space. So for people that don't know you, give me a little intro. What sets you apart as, a little bit different in what you do with your chiropractic practice than what people might be accustomed to?
So great question. I think what sets us really apart is that we do the full bridge from where people are coming in with pain through the rehab phase. And then the best part is back to training. So we do 3 phases of care. When I started my practice, I just saw like a big need for athletic people who love lifting that just weren't getting enough. And so they'd go to the chiropractor, they'd go to the traditional office and get like a crack and some heat and some stim. And for myself personally, I just knew that wasn't enough for me, going through that when I was injured in college. And so when I opened up my practice, I just wanted to give people a full hour of care within that session. We'll go through exercises, not just lay down and do passive stuff. We'll do the tissue work and all that. But we really focus on like a full body approach and where those people need us, and then progress them through the exercises as we go through. So I saw that, when I was in school in California, I shadowed back home for a little bit, and I went to a bunch of offices in this area and nobody was doing that. So I was like, you know what? Why not me?
So your new office now is in Red Bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know so to clarify, you've been practicing for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, when I say just opened, just to be clear, you've been, working out at different gyms, different spots in between and in between, but now you're finally open in your spot. So I guess my biggest question is why the separation from the traditional model, right? Like a lot of people are used to, like, they come in to, whether it's a physical therapist or a chiropractor, they got their insurance card. They're like, I just want to use whatever this gets me, right? So, why move away from that model?
So I worked at a chiropractic office before school, and it was very high volume, a lot of people, car accident cases, typically very quick appointments. More so, I saw the back end of things and it really turned me off, and it just felt not ethical in my opinion. And so for me to like sleep at night, I wanted to give people like high value care, actually care about results, and watch them actually get back to the things they love to do again. So for me, the traditional model never really settled from that job. And as I went through school, I just kind of kept shadowing people, physical therapists, trainers, Olympic chiros, everybody under the sun, so I could just get more perspectives. And I knew finally I found some good mentors that showed me what was possible, and that I didn't have to, give into that type of model.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that you touched on is like the is it ethical, in that realm? Because I think there's a lot of people that if they're unfamiliar with, cash-based practices and things like that, they might push back and be like, you're charging what? Like, I don't understand. And it's like, you have to go back and explain to them, like, look, those other places that you were going have a full-time person,
mm-hmm.
if not a full-time team, just figuring out the best way that they can run up what they can get billed from your insurance by doing things that may not even benefit you.
Exactly.
But I'm unethical because it's $200 or whatever it is for a visit. It's
right.
Like, okay, cool. As long as we're clear on that, we're good. But so walk me through like the initial patient kind of process with you. Like I come in, my knees bother me for whatever reason. What does that first appointment, kind of that first intro look like with you?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. So because of that, what you just said, we have to build trust with people. So we always offer a free discovery visit, and that's 30 minutes. But like I say to my patients, it's always the most important, because on that session, we do the movement analysis and joint range of motion testing. So that gives me a lot of information just from the movement analysis. I could see where they're deficient, where they need help, what's causing their pain. And so after that, we take it one step at a time. We meet each other. They come see the office. They get the vibe. They see like how we're different. And then from there, we do the evaluation session, which is first time we do treatment, first time we spend 1 hour together, first time we do our exercises. And then from there, we see how you respond to treatment. And then after that starts the plans of care. So whether that's 15, 30 sessions, whatever it is, I'll give my clinical recommendation. Ultimately, it's up to them to, invest in their whatever package they want. But I always give my clinical recommendation, and then from there starts the plan of care.
Mm-hmm. So it's not the traditional, like, hold on, let us just check your insurance real quick. Looks like you have 20 visits that you're cleared for. So I think I can get this cleared up for you in probably gonna be 20 visits.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do 3 times a week for a week this week, and it ramps down from there. And look, I want to be clear. Like, I don't think everybody inside of the traditional medical model is doing a bad job or is like a scam artist. I just think that like you described, like the system is screwed up. As another example, like my dad just had his hip replacement done. And I was like, oh, like when do you go to physical therapy? He goes, oh, no physical therapy. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, they said I don't need it. And I'm like, so someone sawed your bone, like jammed something with a mallet essentially down into your hip and then patched you back up. And you're just like, yeah, just go for some walks.
Right.
And it's like even stuff like that, they've cut back on so much. So I think it's super important that people to start advocating for their own care when they feel like they need it. And more people like yourself are kind of moving outside of that model.
Right. And just to piggyback off that, kind of what you said earlier was like time-based, insurance-based clinics, they literally are run by insurance. So if the stim only pays for 12 minutes, you're only getting 12 minutes. If you're not getting paid for manual therapy, they'll skip it. If you're a chiropractor and you don't get billed out for exercise, they skip it and you get referred to the PT so they can bill it. So everything's like kind of pre-planned based on what the insurance is going to pay. So for me, I just, again, it felt icky. And some people get a full hour of tissue work. Some people get a full hour of exercise. Some people get half and half. It depends on what they need. So I never wanted insurance to dictate what I did.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand in a commercial model, there are places that have, without naming names, they have like 800 locations. Like if you come in and your sheet says shoulder impingement, you're getting whatever the shoulder impingement plan is, even though there could be 40 different reasons that that's happening.
Exactly.
It's like, here's what we do. These are the exercises we do. Oh, and like you're saying, because let's use an injury, an injury like that, a situation like that, some people might need manual therapy for that. Some people might need no manual therapy and they need all learning how to stabilize and get stronger. So, a lot of people walk in and they're like, they feel like they got this customized care because the paper has their name on it, right? But it's the same pictures that anybody would be getting.
Right.
And I try to reiterate to them, it's like, look, that might work for, whatever, I'm gonna make up a number, 50% of the people. If someone is extremely deconditioned, hasn't really worked out before, and they have like a fall and they need to get back to whatever they were doing before, which was essentially nothing, that model can work. Hey, let's just get them moving, make sure nothing hurts again, and then move back from there. It's like, but I know from, seeing your work on Instagram or just, knowing you personally, you're dealing with a lot of other people that want to perform at a higher level than that.
Exactly.
So the plan of care for someone who wants to get back to deadlifting 600 pounds can't be the same as someone who like just needs to go up the steps, even though they both have like lateral knee pain.
Right.
Right. So now we do that standard of care. What is that? What are the appointments going forward looking from like that? Is it a lot of times people come in with chiropractic, they're like, oh, I go in, I get my little massage in the beginning, crack, thank you, see you next time.
Right.
So what's it look like for you?
So kind of to that point too is I think there's a huge problem with PT, chiro in general is like they just severely underload people. And I call it like rehab purgatory. Like you're doing the same banded exercise for 16 weeks. And it doesn't move the needle, right? Like you have to change motor patterns, you have to change tissue. And so in the beginning stages, obviously we meet people where they're at. But as they go through, I always warn people like, I am aggressive. Like I'm not gonna baby you. We're not doing bands for the first 5-10 weeks. We're not doing that. We'll do positional exercises and get them into better positions so they can feel different muscles and feel things they haven't felt before, get into better positions. And then from there, we start to load. So that's why it's cool. The third phase of care is the strength and performance phase. And that's where we typically load patients up. We get them under a barbell again, start doing heavier lifts. It's like, it becomes almost like training. And so that way, by the time they're done with the plan of care, they're confident again. I can hand them off to a trainer. And now they're like smooth sailing. Yeah.
So like what kind of resistance do you get? I'm sure a lot of people like, again, to use the traditional model as something to contrast against, they're used to coming in and doing that stuff, right? So how do you kind of build that trust to where they feel comfortable? Like, I don't know, like I always heard like squats are bad for my knees. This guy's got me doing squats like I came here for knee pain.
Right.
Like how do you kind of bridge that gap with them?
I think what really helps with that is the marketing on social media. Like people kind of, if they follow us, they kind of know like we're against the grain. I post a lot of educational stuff about that. And then when I come in, I just explain like the mechanics of the knee. Like we have to have this actually bend forward. Like you stopping your knees from bending is actually causing a problem. And so just the buy-in from like social media, thoroughly explaining like what we're doing in the assessment process. Like, hey, this is limited and this is what's going to help. in my experience, in my opinion, like I know you've tried other things, but like this is what's worked for us. So you're just gonna have to trust me and like work with me. But for the most part, people are bought in before they even come in because they've, done their research. They look at the Google reviews. They like see our website. They're like, okay, like, this is a little different.
So, what are the type of people that you're working with most? Like who do you see most often?
Good question. So I think in the beginning, I was marketing more towards powerlifting because I was biased and that's what I was doing. But more so now, it's more of like the active individual who now has kids, aging a little bit, and they're afraid of surgery. That's typically like our perfect clientele because they're trying to avoid a big operation. They've been told by many other clinics that's the only next step, and we're kind of like the last resort. And so when we show them what's possible, they're like, I'm going to give this a shot.
And I think the main thing is that people get too hyper focused on one aspect of what they might be experiencing, right? Like, so the minute they have knee pain, the rest of their entire workout stops. They do nothing else.
Right.
Right. And trying to explain to them all the other benefits of just good strength training and exercising can have just hormonally, to help them recover is super important. So because that's a limitation of the traditional model as well, right? Like if I come in with, knee or hip pain, they don't want to see that I'm doing a kettlebell overhead press. Like you're not getting paid for that. Right. Like, so, how do you start to explain to people that, hey, like, I know you're having this knee issue, right? Because I mean, to you or I or anybody else, if any coaches are listening to this, it might seem fairly obvious, but for general clients, they might still have crazy questions like, why are you doing stuff with my ankle, right? Like, how do you start to kind of break that down for them, or what does that look like?
I kind of explained that we do a full body approach. So I used to think, this is a full circle moment, I used to think that was like kind of a quack chiro type of thing. And then I really dove deep into like the biomechanics of, human movement, and it really is like all connected. And so just showing them what's going on with them, and in the assessment process, like taking pictures, showing them their measurements of like their hip, their shoulders, all that. I'm like, this is what we're after, like full picture. And this is where you're at right now. And so maybe an hip issue, but like, look at your shoulder rotation. And every time you walk, do you think that that's having an impact on your hip or something like that? And they're like, oh, that's interesting. That makes sense. So they see the chessboard, I call it, in the treatment room, and they're like, okay, so that's limited and that's limited. And this is like a cross pattern right here. So every time I do swing the golf club, let's say, or I'm throwing a baseball, like that is affecting it. So I just help them connect the dots, make it make sense to whatever their dream outcome is, whether it's swimming, golf, lifting weights. I always try to connect the dots for them to make it make sense.
Yeah. And it's always super helpful getting referrals from more forward-thinking therapists or clinicians, because even to this day, I think we still get people that end up getting sent to us and they've finished a certain amount of care and they're like, I'm here to work out, but my doctor just said like, I can't do this. And it's always some, pick an arbitrary exercise. They're not, but I just can't deadlift, or I just can't squat. And then inevitably you're like, all right, well, why? Like, what did they say? Like, what was the reason? Well, they didn't really say anyway. They just said, just don't do that anymore. And it's like, well, do you want to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, I kind of liked it. It's like, all right, well, how about we try to put something together that we get back to there? So do you, I mean, obviously if they've come to you, they've reached a point probably of a level of frustration in some other setting, but do you still feel like you get pushback on that? Like people feel like they are, they have X's up on certain exercises?
Definitely. And it's not an easy conversation, but I always say to my patients too, like, just borrow some of my confidence, because I have confidence that you can do it. And if you need to borrow some of mine, like, absolutely take that, because I know that you can do it again. And we don't have to avoid deadlifts forever. It's not this like one magical exercise is going to just break your back in half. There's steps to get there, right? There's progressions to get there, and we can absolutely do that if that's your goal. But if you are dead set on not doing it, like some people are just like, no, then we'll switch to different variation. Yeah,
there's always different tools to get the same job done.
Right.
It's just like sometimes, people come in with that inherent just like complete fear. And it takes a long time to kind of break that down with someone and get them feeling confident again, because, they could list out that they don't want to squat, or they don't want to deadlift. And then you ask them like, all right, well, what are your goals? What kind of activities you're looking to get back to? And they're like, I like to get down and often on the floor with my grandkids and, bend over and pick them up. I'm like, well, we better figure out how to do one of those two things then, because we're going to have a hard time, moving forward if that's not the case.
Exactly. I think helping them understand that, and sometimes like what they're saying and what their goal is does not align. So just helping them get clarity on their own goals is super helpful.
Yeah, and I think the getting people used to like it's okay for this to feel hard, right? Like if we're trying to, I don't care whether we're trying to stretch or we're trying to do strength training. If we're trying to change tissue, like that's a hard process. I don't care what we're trying to do. So getting them used to that is super important. So tell me about the move. Like, I mean, I would assume that you had a pretty sweet setup where you were before, as far as like whatever you were doing in rent and stuff like that. But why to move to your own space?
I was very fortunate to be part of Arch for 5 years, and we had access to great equipment, and we had our 2 rooms, but eventually we kind of grew out of it, and they were growing as well. So it was kind of perfect timing. And so I started to just look at a couple places. I did a quick analysis of like where most of my clients were, and actually, funny enough, it was more Highlands, Red Bank area. So I was like, you know what, let me just look that way. And then that spot popped up on the corner. It was like kind of like oh wow, like this is available.
I think I bought a mattress from there one time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a mattress store, and they were out for like a couple months. And I was like, that would be really cool, like downtown Red Bank, big windows. I was hidden in the corner of a gym for 6 years, and to have like that space with that much traffic there, I was like, let's just go for it. And it ended up working out. We beat out the pizza place. And,
that was who you were competing against in terms of release?
Yeah, they want to do like some outdoor dining and pizza, and it was just like a lot to get passed through the town, so they chose us. But they were super excited to have us. And we started the build out in like, I signed in late September, and we started like October, November. And of course, hit some bumps in the road, but we thought February, but here we are in May, and we got in. And it's awesome because I got to kind of select exercise equipment that I found was the best. A lot of efficient machines that we don't have a massive space anymore, but we have everything we need. And for Red Bank, it was great. We got parking spaces, we got plenty of room, we got 2 treatment rooms, an office, a front desk for once. So it really felt great to like finally have our own location, especially with the front desk. Underrated. So that's probably one of my favorite parts, and plenty of gym floor to do the rehab stuff. And then of course, my exercise background in strength training, I just kind of went for the big home run machines that you can do a lot of stuff with. So stoked to have all that.
It's an interesting point, like, because I think perception from someone is always what's most important. Like the truth matters, but then also what someone perceives is super important too.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of cash-based practitioners struggle with that because they do end up like subleasing a space from someone or something like that. So people are coming in and they're expecting to spend more money than they would, right? And then they come in and they're like, "Where's this guy?
Yeah.
He's where? Oh yeah, just hang a right." Don't pay attention to that guy grunting all the way. Just go. He's right back there.
Walk over that mat.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh hey, but yeah, like having something like that, certainly goes a long way. And then like equipment's come a long way, right? Like I remember when we were first looking at outfit and stuff, it's like if you wanted a belt squat, it probably would take up the whole space that you have right now,
right?
Because like they just didn't build anything efficiently. Now it's like you can get like a 2x2 rack that you could squat, have cables coming from it,
exactly,
pull up bar attachments, and be good to go. So you can get a lot done in a small amount of space.
Yeah. So I was making sure like we got the right stuff and didn't go overboard. And I was like, what can I just order that would be very efficient? Because again, it's 2,000 square feet ish. So not huge, but not small. So we actually have like a perfect amount of stuff. We even have a garage space because it's like an L, and that's currently just empty. I still don't know what I want to do, either recovery stuff or leg machines. Still up for debate, but it's plenty of room. And again, like it's our own standalone office. So like you said, you don't have to climb through the back and try to find where I'm at. It's a great feeling. Yeah.
So what are some things for the general fitness crowd that they can kind of take home from you in terms of if they start dealing with, an injury or a pain? Like what are some of the common misconceptions that you end up having to kind of go through with them to kind of get them straightened out? If they're dealing with this and they feel like, hey, should I just leave this alone or should I go see someone, like help kind of move them from point A to point B?
Yeah, I'll give 2 that are like opposite ends of the spectrum. So typically when people come in, they're like, do you need to see my MRI first? And I'm like, no. It's great if you want to get it for peace of mind, but for me, it doesn't change our process at all. And so with that comes like a disc herniation. And when they see that and they see the MRI report, they think like, oh my God, I am out for 6 months. I'm not gonna be able to do anything. I might not be able to lift ever again. And so with that, I want to say that discs heal, which I think is like not common knowledge. Discs heal all the time. I've healed my own disc injury. As long as you get the proper care and proper rehab, like it's pretty quick and seamless. On the opposite side of that, people that, they have this lingering pain, it becomes chronic, and they try a YouTube exercise they find and they're like, oh, that worked great, but it doesn't really address the real problem. So it comes right back. And then they see a chiropractor for 3 sessions and they're like, I felt great. They leave, they ghost to chiro, and they, a month later it comes right back. So for those people, I would say, get a good quality assessment, find a chiro or PT or whoever that, you resonate with that can help you, and actually go through with the plan.
So why is that? Why do those things keep coming back? Why isn't it like, hey, this is happening. If I do this, it's good to go. Right? Like why is it that those injuries tend to kind of keep coming back on people?
I think it's just like, it's like a shotgun approach, and they see like, something like, for example, on YouTube, and it's like a McKenzie press up, and they're like, oh wow, that actually felt great. I did 3 sets of 30, just like the guy on YouTube said, and it kind of went away. But that typically doesn't solve the actual problem, which could be coming from somewhere else, right? So it temporarily feels great. It's kind of like an injection or a quick adjustment or a pain medication. It's temporarily feels good, and then you're like, oh, I'm in the clear. But it didn't really address the actual problem. And so that's why we do the full body assessment.
Yeah, and I when, because sometimes people will bypass you and come straight to us. And sometimes I have to explain to them, like, look, I break it down into steps, right? Number 1 is like, we have to find a way to give you some pain relief, right? Because there's no motor learning if pain's on board, right? You can't learn a new way to move if you're in pain. So there's going to be things that make it feel better. Some people need a shot. Some people might need, whatever. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't care if it's soft tissue therapy, whatever it is, to get the pain to kind of die down. But most people at that point will think like, I'm good, right?
Yep.
And it's like, all right, that was just a way of getting the noise out. Now we need to figure out, how do we upload new movement so that we don't continue to do that over and over again.
Right.
Because it can't be like, listen, yeah, I've tweaked my back deadlifting, I don't know how many times, right? But because like you rush, you don't warm up, you do whatever. And then, but you get to a point where like, all right, like I know it's not like some major thing that I need to go consult, hospital special surgery for.
Right.
And that's another thing people like to do. I'm like, well, I went to HSS, and it's like, cool. Like, what does he deadlift? Like, I don't know. Like what can he, like, how can he help? Like, he's not here right now.
Right.
Like, but getting the point across of like, these things aren't, a lot of people like to think of like, this thing happened, it hurt. As long as I can get it to stop hurting, then it's good.
Right.
But trying to explain to them that there's a host of different ways that you're moving or things that you're doing that we need to address.
Exactly.
And, I think I've said it before on a different show, but like, there's only a couple reasons things break. Is like, it wasn't strong enough to withstand whatever stress you were doing, right? How do we get better at handling stress? Training, right? So that's it, right? It doesn't matter. Like, you can call that whatever you want. You can call it physical therapy, chiropractic, whatever. It's just training, and here's the level that you're able to tolerate right now.
I call it like dipping your toe into the hot tub. Like, some people just dive right in, and it's too much too soon, and then the back ends up hurting. But back to your previous point about like HSS and stuff, like typically when you go to those places, it's catastrophizing. Is that the word? Like language, like they just make you feel like you are broken and like, this is holy moly, like this is bad. When I come in, I'm very deliberate with the language, and like, or when patients come into us, and I'm more on the positive end of things, and like, here's the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this is what's possible, not like you're broken, you have to be here. Like, that's more maybe even a sales tactic for them. And I don't like to do that. It feels icky. But then the opposite end of the spectrum is like the person that is like, let's just pick on CrossFit for a second. They're just like, no, I'm fine. It's fine. So I'm going to push through this. It's fine. But then it starts to linger, and it gets worse, and it's months. And then all of a sudden you're skipping leg day, and all of a sudden you're like just pulling from a box for life. Those people are the ones that I'm like, dude, let's do an assessment. Let's take this one step at a time. Let's figure this out.
I have a funny story along that lines. There was like, when we first bought one of the gyms, there was a group training, and they were kind of into CrossFit, but not at a CrossFit gym. And it became apparent why after a while. And it's like, there would always be the start of this workout, no matter what it was. Let's say it was supposed to be like hang cleans, and then a 400-meter run and all these movements. And they would all get together and they'd be like, hey, Jeremy, like, I don't know if I could do the back squats. I'm like, all right, well, then they would all get together and they'd be like, well, we'll just body weights. We'll just do like air squats for that. Okay, cool. And then the other guy would be like, I don't know that I can bench because my shoulder. I'm like, all right, we'll do push-ups. And then it was like, yeah, and I don't know about the cleans because my wrists. And then every time I catch it, and they were like, all right, we'll do pull-ups. And like, no matter what the workout started as, it always regressed into air squats, push-ups, and pull-ups. It could be like, you could start anywhere and it always got regressed back to doing those 3 movements. And they would just do that workout all the time because like between the 5 of them, they couldn't find 4 exercises that they all could do besides those 3 things. So it would just regress back to that. And like every morning they'd be like, squats, push-ups, and pull-ups again. I'm like, yes, that's the timer. And they just, exactly. That's what it would revert to. And they would get stuck doing those things.
Right.
But yeah, to that point, like I think trying to get people to understand that there is a point where you don't want to have to continually change the exercise that you're doing all the time. It's fine to, so that you can continue to work out, try other things. Mm-hmm. But at some point, like the way I like to describe it to people is like, whatever exercise you feel like you got hurt doing is probably the most important one that we have to get back to doing, because if we can address whatever went wrong, right? Whether it was load, position, frequency, duration, intensity, whatever it was, right? Then you can really kind of prevent this from reoccurring again.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people come in with the opposite and they're like, I tweaked my back deadlifting. I don't really want to ever do that again.
Yeah. I think my powerlifting background, thankfully, really helped with that, because I hurt my back, same thing, right? And literally the next day, just for my mental, I did the same exact movement just to show myself that like, all right, obviously I'm in pain. I clearly did something to my back, but I don't want to be afraid of this motion. Mm-hmm. Like that's where people start to go down like the chronic pain hole, is that they start to avoid any hinge. They're scared to like pick up a kid or, bend over to get a pan from like the lower sink, under the sink, whatever. They start to avoid all of those. And then it turns into squat, and then they're only squatting stuff, and then their knee starts hurting. So avoiding the movement is actually what's causing the issue. Yeah.
And there's better research that would show telling someone don't do that, you're going to hurt your back, is worse than showing them how to do it. Exactly. Right? Like suggesting like, oh, you don't want to do that, you're going to hurt your back. Like, and implanting that into their brain and nervous system can sometimes do more harm than like just giving them exposure to it. Right. So that kind of leads me to another question is, I feel, and especially because I know you've done some videos on Instagram that, get a lot of attention because they're creative. They, maybe they're right on the border of being controversial, you know what I mean? Like, so, which is great. Like that's marketing, yeah. Right? But do you feel like the pendulum has kind of swung a little bit too far with, like, I feel like before it was like, you don't want anybody to deadlift ever unless their back looks perfectly like this. Mm-hmm. And then it progressed to like, everyone should do Jefferson curls standing on an 18-inch box with 135 pounds because it looks cool. Yeah. And it's like, you could lift however you want. And it's like, where are you at on that? Because I feel like, I know my opinion is way too far the other end. Right. I don't think you need to nitpick everybody's form, but I also don't think everything can be a circus trick.
Exactly. No, I went down the pain science rabbit hole, and that's what that field kind of is. It's like nothing's bad. There's no bad movement, like just something you're not accustomed to. And I was on that for a bit, and just again with the powerlifting background and like knowing how important like technique is, and then biomechanics with just human movement, I was like, you know what? I don't actually agree with that model anymore. And it wasn't really helpful because people like don't care. They just want to feel better. They don't care about pain science and like how nerdy you are and what research article says what. They just want to feel better. So just having empathy for like the clients, I kind of shifted away from that. And I'm like, I'm going to teach you everything that I know and what I think is best. And then, I think that you're going to improve from this. Is that like the worst movement in the world? No. But like, we don't have to like Jefferson curl like 135 to like prove that your disc isn't going to explode.
Yeah, I think again, everything with social media is just taken to the far end of the extremes. But I'm like, if a normal person saw that and went and did it, like there's a difference between it not being dangerous and it being dangerous for you. Right. Right. It's like the person that you're seeing who's doing that with 225, like they started with a broomstick. Right. And it's like, but they're going to go and start right with 95 pounds because they're gonna be like, well, I don't know, I saw this guy on Instagram do it. And then they're like, I got hurt doing that. And it's like, well, no shit. What did you think that was going to happen? And for the sake of talking through here, because it'll be a mix of people that listen, some clients, some other professionals, is like, It's like, yeah, but some exercises have bigger bandwidths, right? They're all inherently safe if you load them and do them correctly. But if I have the bandwidth of an exercise that I have this large range of areas that I can, have room for different variations in technique, but I have another exercise where I have this very little one, it's totally safe.
Right.
It's just that the edges of where things can go wrong is a lot easier.
Exactly. I'd rather show them like a safe exercise in the beginning and then progress them towards maybe like a little more of a riskier one. But in the beginning, it's definitely more like, all right, this I know for a fact will feel good. And then as we go through the program and depending on their goal, like then we'll start to push it. But like people like the knees over toes guy, I'm torn with him because it was great that he kind of eliminated the fear of bending your knees over your toes during squats. But then you have people that are like literally sissy squatting like with 225 on the bar. It's like, all right,
I feel like
happy medium.
They just and also like to put the responsibility on the user is they usually skip steps.
Yeah,
it's like page 1 was like you're going to be on like a 20-inch box just doing like a split squat stride to try and get more hip and ankle mobility, and they're like, nah. Page 37 said do this. Like, that looks cool. I don't want to do all the other stuff. So I mean, the process that someone like him, the knees over toes guys, lays out is like an 8-week program just to even get to that stuff. But people they see the one exercise and they're like, I want to try that. And they're like, I screwed my knee up doing that. I thought the knees over toe guy said it was good. It's like, well, it's not really what he said.
Yeah.
So when people come in, like, what are some of the exercises? Like if I had to phrase it, it would be like, they walk in and they say, hey doc, I screwed up my X doing Y, right? What are the most common injuries that you see and from what? Like if you had to pigeonhole a couple injuries to exercises.
Oh man, so good question. It's definitely, I would say like a lot of the percentage is hip and lower back. A lot of feet recently, to be honest, a lot of foot pain. And with that is common exercises that like squats, single leg stuff, running's a big one now. And so again, I don't really pick like a pre-made exercise list in my head. I just let the assessment do the talking. So based on whatever I see in the assessment, I'll kind of pick and choose and be creative in that sense at that moment. But in the beginning, it's just, let's eliminate the creativity. Let's get them just feeling good for now. And then I'll start to, get a little more creative as the plan goes on. But yeah, I would say definitely hip, low back, and like I mentioned, feet. I joked on Instagram the other day, like I'm going to become the foot doctor. Just like, where are all these coming from?
What is going on with them? Like what like are they coming in for?
Achilles pain, plantar pain. And it's all and it's helped me honestly become a better clinician because I have to understand the foot like a lot better. And then when they come in, inevitably, I know you're a chiropractor, but like, do you help like foot pain? So I'm like, yeah, actually.
It's all the pickleballers, right?
Yeah.
They're all like, and I love playing. Pete's over there somewhere. Pete's pretty nasty. But it's like use the Achilles one as an example is like, they're not used to being at a standstill and then taking an aggressive step back to try and go forward. And then inevitably that's when they have an issue. I look along the lines of like to touch on what you said before, like, we talked about people saying like there's no bad exercises. Like, nah, I got plenty.
Yeah.
Like, I can give you a couple that if I had to blindly write a program for 100 people, which neither one of us is doing, there are certainly ones that I'd be like, I'm going to leave that out. Right. Like for us, when we get like, I just call them like the CrossFit converts, like they did it when they were younger, but now they're late 30s, they're early 40s. And they're like, I just can't do that anymore.
Right.
And, exercises like kipping pull-ups, right? Like it doesn't, I agree. It doesn't mean it's a bad exercise,
right?
But I'm like, all right, like lift your arms up overhead. And like, I know that most people will just be listening, but they lift their arms up and like it barely clears their shoulder.
Right.
And I'm like, so you think hanging and swinging as violently as you can from a fixed metal bar is good for everything that's attached to that? And you're like, well, when you put it like that, I'm like, all right, cool, assessment over. This is what we're gonna do. Right? Like, we need to fix that first.
Right.
I try to break it down for people. It's like there are hardware and software problems. If you have a hardware problem, there's no amount of me coaching you like in words that are going to change that. Right. Like if I ask you to lift your arm up overhead and like you can't get your arm past your ear, there's no amount of like, Jeremy, lift your arm up.
Right.
No, lift your arm up. No, pack your shoulder down. Yeah. Like you physically cannot do it. There's a hardware problem. You probably need some manual therapy, something more aggressive to try and, change that. Then you have software problems, right? If I say lift your arm up overhead and you're standing up and you can't do it. But then I say, lift your arm over your head and you're laying down on the ground and you can, like, we don't need the stretch. You need to learn why can't you stabilize that when you're there.
Right.
So that approach can kind of change and people start to kind of get it. I'm just like, yeah, like if you can't lift your arm over your head, swinging from a bar as violently as you can, like this weekend coming up, I know this won't be live for that, but for reference, Memorial Day is this weekend.
Yep.
There's gonna be plenty of people that blow out shoulders and have all kinds of things going on from Murph. And I'm like, you know, you're allowed to do other things. Like,
right.
You can do a neutral grip chin up. Like you're allowed to do that. like Murph's not gonna find you and curse you for changing the workout.
I just to that point, like that's why we measure everybody's ranges of motion. And so when I have them doing like a single arm lat pull down, just to that example, like at like 45 degrees instead of overhead, like why this angle? Well, this is your active range. This is what you have access to. This is probably going to feel a lot better. And as we go through the program, then we obviously keep going up and up and up. But let's work with what we got for now. Still can go hard, but let's work within your active range of motion.
Yeah, because I know one of the more common things for us is what Dan John calls the OMEPs. It's the old man elbow pain syndrome. And it's like, yeah, I think I got like tennis elbow. And you're like, you play tennis? They're like, no. I'm like, well, you got elbow, but it can't be tennis. You know, and I'm teasing for that room, but it's usually, you know, trying to do chin-ups or trying to do overhead work in positions that they just don't have access to. And I just try to explain to them, like, the bar is not going to bend.
Right.
It's iron. So that tension has to go somewhere.
Exactly.
So they end up in those type of positions.
And you're locked in.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, like, so trying to teach them like, all right, for now, try them on the rings, right? Because the ring can rotate. Like if your one hand can rotate a little bit differently than the other, because maybe you have some sort of asymmetry or whatever going on, like you can still do chin-ups, just do them on the rings.
Right.
Why do you have to use a bar? It's like CrossFit said the bar. I'm like, who? Like, who is this person?
There's always arbitrary rules and perfect squat and all that people are like just obsessed with.
Yeah. So let's go back to the running, because we had talked about that before. You know, what are some of the things that, you know, recreational athletes, people that are doing high rocks, jumping into Spartan races, things like that, what are some of the general recommendations you can give them to make sure that they're keeping their body kind of in tune for what they want to do?
Well, I think you'll love this. Typically runners are just like very unconditioned, like weight wise with strength training. So just like any type of load in like a good position feels great. And that's my problem too with like the hybrid. I feel like it's very hard to chase both. Like you have to be an exceptional athlete. And so one's going to probably falter if you're like a regular gen pop person. So more so the strength training would be like, you know, an easy big rock to just easily turn over, and sticking to a plan and not just like, you know, do weight training one day and then the next week it's 3 weeks or 3 days a week. And then the next day is like 1 week again, or 1 day a week. So generally it's just like loading them up and strengthening the hip, strengthening the lower limbs, like going through single leg exercises, lateral exercises, because they're always in one plane. Those typically are the best.
Yep. So when we're looking at like how long someone comes in for treatment for you, like how long is the average person staying, right? Because I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, like in physical therapy, it's usually they look at your insurance, see how many visits you have, run that out for as long as they can,
right,
and then move on from there. Like, are a majority of people coming into you for 4 or 5 visits, or are they staying for 6 to 8 weeks?
So it's about 3 months. That's how long like a package typically takes. So typically people do the like middle package, which is 18. And that's once or twice a week in the beginning. Twice would be ideal. But as we go down the program, it becomes like once a week. So that typically goes around like 3 months-ish. For the people that do more than that, they either want more and they want to stay and they love it. Or, you know, they picked a smaller package and we didn't get to where they wanted to go, so they get another one. Either way, it's around 3 to 4 months. And then
do you have options for people that kind of just come in for like a tune-up? Like, hey, I'm done with regular care, but I still train pretty hard, and I feel like every, 8 weeks I need to pop in and, either get some soft tissue work or get an adjustment.
I used to do a membership option, but it kind of freaked people out because they would get charged like a gym. So they're like, oh, I didn't come in, but I got charged. So I stopped doing it just for the confusion. And usually now they'll just buy another package and then just spread it out like throughout the year.
Got it. So they can just, whatever, I'm making up a number, they can buy 5 and just use them whenever they want instead of doing it ongoingly. All right.
Yep.
So what's changed with the new location? Do you have different options available now for people that you weren't able to offer before?
Kind of. So we obviously have no like people to run into and bump into. And like we have 2 squat racks with the cables, like you said. We have a gym like set up with like dumbbells, barbells, blocks, balls, medicine balls. So we can do all the rotational stuff, blocks, yoga balls. We can do the rehab exercise style stuff. So really nothing's changed, which is good. We have access now to just more so in the performance and training phase. Like we can just kind of send it now at the end instead of, feeling weird about stepping on toes, which is cool. And then we can send them off and they're happy to go to a trainer after that or whatever it is. Okay.
And then what would you say? Cause I know sometimes for me referring out, I still get like, I don't want to go to a chiropractor, right? How would you define what you're doing? Obviously it still falls under the umbrella of chiropractic care because that's what you're licensed in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, how do you kind of try to break down that wall for people to explain that they're not just gonna come in and just crack your neck?
Right. So I was very hesitant to market myself as a chiro in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then recently with like you said, a couple posts do well. And then you get the physical therapists that are like, he's hiding that he's a chiropractor. He's not a real doctor. So I now have chiropractor in the bio because just to keep it, sane or whatever. But I would say that a good clinician, any clinician in physical therapy, chiro, even training, it should look pretty damn similar, right? Like this training part obviously has to be a part of it. Like if you're not getting any movement at an office, like you're probably wasting your time, especially if it's just the cookie cutter stuff. And then for PTs and chiros, like specifically chiros, if you're just getting cracked, and that's what my whole marketing message is, that we're not just that office. We're doing a lot more than that, way more than that. And even with like, when I explain to a new patient, like I understand that pain is like probably your prime focus, but like what we do here is like way beyond that. It is the one phase out of 3. So I can appreciate that you're in pain, but like we have a lot more to do here, like the rehab phase and the strength training phase. So that's kind of what I show people in the office is like, we have now, especially in Red Bank, we have this mini gym facility. That is like pretty much the differentiator between like you don't walk into a traditional place and see squat racks. So they see that, they're like, oh, this place is like different already. And then they see like our model. So they do the free discovery visit. They see that we take the assessment very seriously. And then they're like, oh, this person like finally connected the dots for me. It wasn't like, yeah, your back's done. You got sciatica. You probably need a 30 pack. You're broken. And we're going to do an x-ray and make sure that the adjustments are helping the disc go back in. And then by the end of the 30, we're going to do another x-ray. It's probably not going to be good still. So you're going to do another 30 pack and then probably be here forever. So none of that stuff. And I think people, when they come in, they just get the vibe that it's not that.
Yeah, because it's hard to get across to people too that everything matters. Mm-hmm. It's like if you have low back pain, like I'm sure there's some different things that we need to improve movement wise. But like if your resting heart rate's 90, right? Maybe we should try like some walks. Like we should go for some walks, or maybe like lose like one of the more highly correlated things would just be being overweight, right? Like that's still part of an assessment. Like and like no one wants to come to the chiropractor and be like, bro told me I need to lose 50 pounds. like screw this guy. So what are some of the, like, I think to branch off of something that you said in that last little piece there, what are like 3 red flags that people can look for if they're going to, because not everybody's going to be in the area to come see you or someone who maybe follows a similar approach, but what are some of the red flags that people who don't know what you and I know can look for when they're going to either a physical therapist or a chiropractor? I
would say number 1 would be the imaging thing. So if they're like automatically doing imaging, sort of a red flag. If you're
getting, why is that?
Because I think that they use it to, like I said, kind of like a sales tactic. Like, oh, look how damaged this is. Like you need to be in this office. And like I've mentioned, I've probably sent out, literally I can probably count on my hands, like how many MRIs I've sent people out for, because the assessment should show you everything you need. It doesn't change our treatment process like at all. I appreciate the image, but really it's just it's a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
It's you laying down.
It's like that episode of Seinfeld where he's like, you can never find a good mechanic. He's like, you go there and you come out and he's like, oh, you need a new Johnson rod. Yeah. Oh, Johnson rod. All right, put that in.
Exactly.
It's kind of like the same thing. It's like, oh, look, the guy said, hey, fix it, I guess.
Yeah, because people typically don't know, right? And so they're just like, oh, well, he said that this is really bad. So for me, that's a red flag. If you're getting treated by like five people at the same time and they're bouncing from room to room and you're getting like 2 minutes of their attention, red flag. And if you get a sheet of exercises handed to you, definitely a red flag. Everybody got the same sheets magically. It's like, that's like you said earlier, like protocol doesn't exist in my world. Like everybody's different. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has a fitness background that's different. The fitness level's different, like where they want to go, where they're at. It's just impossible to give everybody the same exercises and expect results. So those for sure. And I can go deeper, but
no, I think that was good. I mean, those were good, concise ones. I guess the other thing, like when I look at your Instagram page, I see you, and again, not a critique, but I think it's entertaining. But I do see some of the backlash from people. It's like, dude, what's your problem with clamshells? Yeah. What's your issue with some of these traditional therapy exercises?
Right. It's dude, I've gotten a lot of that one, especially for the Y raises. That post went crazy. But I guess like, you go to school and you learn about scapular stabilizers and you're all excited about it. You're like, this is going to work for everybody. But like sometimes it doesn't. And Mackenzie, right? Mackenzie has their own, like they do courses around the world. Like they're very well
people to press themselves up.
Right. Like it's not going to work for everybody. So like my whole message was that is like for the people that it doesn't work for, that's my clientele. Like I'm like typically a last resort place. So like they've already tried that. It didn't work for them. So why would I do that again? And they get all, upset about it because it's like a traditional exercise that they learn in school and it's like widely known as like this great exercise for shoulder pain. But like for the people that I'm seeing, like the 40 a week that I see, it didn't work for them. So what's your answer there? And it's like, oh, well, the scapular stabilizer doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, when you're trying to get across to people like that, these exercises aren't magic. All these things are tools, right? That's what I was trying to say. Like all these methods, like whether it's Mackenzie or things like that, are just methods.
Right.
They're not actually approaches to looking like they're tools that you could use, right? If you have a certain presentation, then doing some prone press ups for 50 reps might be exactly what you needed.
Yep.
Right. But not if you have extension based pain, like that's going to hurt. Like it's not going to feel good.
Exactly.
So it's trying to get people to, see past the tools and the methods and find someone that has a principle-based approach to looking at movement and then selecting, because like, I think people might hear this interview and be like, well, Jeremy said he's never going to do a Mackenzie approach for someone. It's like, that's not what we said at all.
Right.
It's just like, it's not going to work for everybody. Right. And then some of these other places that list like, it's the same thing goes for fitness, right? Like, I don't know what being a kettlebell guy means.
Right.
It's like, they're great for some exercises like swings. I like people to press them more than dumbbells for various reasons. But other than that, like, cool. Like you can do basically anything else with other tools. Like, why do I have to only use that? Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I'm a kettlebell guy. It's like, nice to meet you. I like to use everything.
Right.
And it's pretty boring. But and then the same thing goes with rehab, right? Like, dry needling doesn't fix everything, right? ART doesn't fix everything. These are all tools that can be used in a full body approach to trying to figure out what the heck is going on with someone.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like it becomes part of their identity, which is why they get so upset about it. It's like, well, this is all I do. And like, this has worked for me. And again, like I don't make this stuff out of thin air. Like I have a whiteboard in the room, what people tell me, and I use it for content. And so for the people that it doesn't work for, like, what is your answer there? And I have to have an answer.
Yeah, and sometimes it becomes real, right? Because I don't know if it's still going on. You would know better than me, but for a while there, it was like you were allowed to do dry needling, and then you weren't.
Right.
It's like, well, what do you got now?
Yeah.
Like, so they took it like, the state said that these practitioners were allowed to use acupuncture needles and these practitioners weren't. So it's like, once that happens, what do you do?
Right.
Right. Like, well, they took your tool away. Like I get closed business.
Right.
And it's like, or do you find other ways that can, provide similar, if not better,
Exactly. I think PT is not allowed anymore. And then acupuncture is.
I know it's going back and forth because I know when it first started, the acupuncturists were all up in arms, like, that's our stuff. You're not allowed to play with our things. And it's like, well, these people aren't interested in meridians.
Right.
Like they're not using it for that. So take a deep breath.
Yep.
And it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So we talked about the red flags. What would be some of the encouraging signs, if you went somewhere that people could look for, or I guess perhaps a better question is, what questions could they ask a potential person when they were going and consider using them as a therapist or a chiropractor?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say, well, before the question, I would say, do they have empathy, like true empathy? Are they listening to you talk? Are they not cutting you off? Are they hearing you out? Are they understanding what your goal is? Seems like, like an easy thing, but you'd be surprised. From what I hear, it's like, yeah, they just cut me off, didn't hear what I wanted to do, like didn't really hear my story out. Like it was a nightmare. So first, that one probably is most important. Like they hear you out, they understand where you want to go. Ideally, that's a person that does what you do. So they're active themselves. They understand like barbell lifts. They understand like weight training. They understand like programs. They understand all that. And then they spend time with you. Like 2 minutes is not going to cut it for anybody. So if they're spending, at least half hour to an hour with you and they, get to know you, treat you right. For me, it's like a combination of muscle work, adjustments, cupping, all of that passive stuff, but also with the active stuff. So, and that's guided. So one-on-one, if you're just getting like your sheet of exercises and getting pushed to a corner with like the aid, not ideal. So one-on-one with the doctor, and communication. In my office specifically, like I encourage people to send me videos throughout the week. It's almost like, like a trainer does. Send me your technique, send me how you're doing this, because the execution of this stuff that we do is important. Like we're looking for a specific outcome here. So the communication within the week, sending me videos, hey, this is how I'm feeling today after that. It feels great. If it doesn't feel great, they just give me updates 24/7. So I can tweak if I have to, say keep going, push it if you have to, take it back a little bit, whatever it is. Like we're constantly in communication.
Yep. So other question I had is what are some of those modalities that you're using? Because you mentioned cupping, things like that. What are the things that you're using in your office aside from your hands that you feel has a lot of benefit for a lot of people that you work with?
I did. So I was very, what's the word? Stubborn. I always just wanted hands and weights. But I was approached by ARP Neuro. It's a Russian stim current. I guess the best way to describe it, it's a way more intense than like stim. And what's cool about it is you can move the pad and identify like pain points for people. Also on top of that, you can use it while they exercise. So that was the part that got me. Like, oh, if we need like a left adductor to fire during the squat, like we could just slap it on there, make sure it's turned up. We know it's firing in the mid range of that squat. So that machine I have is really cool. It's
Did you wear it, or is it like a
it's
sticky
a pad? Yeah. So you search and it's called search and destroy. So you find the area of pain that the patient's telling you. So that's cool too. Like they're telling you their subjective pain. So you leave the pad on that area, and let's say their outer hip is hurting with like at 90 degrees during the squat. Put it on the pad. You get the stickier pad, put that on that pad, and then match it on the other side, and then you have them go through like the movements. That machine has been really cool, even for pain relief, but also more so like firing muscles that you want, like just that for a fact will be active. So creating different motor patterns for that. The cupping, I kind of use like a neurocentric approach for that. So I'm like following nerve paths, specifically in the neck, lower back. Those are great for like the superficial nerves. I like tracing the nerve path and, giving the nerves some breathing room. I don't leave the cups on and like just have them lay there. For me, it's kind of like passive and boring. So I'll have them either do movements with the cups again, or I'll just like trace the nerve path and say, I'll retest and say like, how did that feel? That I have a factor blade, which is kind of like the scraping. Use that here and there just to give my hands a break. And the Theragun sometimes is super helpful. So if you're deeper tissues like the glutes, if the elbow's not cutting it, I'll just use the Theragun.
Yeah, I always felt like kinesio tape and cupping had the easiest run of marketing ever, because it's like that guy's got blue tape all over him.
Yeah,
I want that. And
exactly.
it's like, you see that dude's back?
Michael
I gotta
Phelps
give me some
did
of
it.
that. Like, you know, like, and they're like, I'm going to swim fast if I get that shit on my back.
Exactly. Best marketing of all time was Phelps.
Do you find that sometimes people just like they just want that?
Yeah.
Like, cause they saw like their buddy went to they came to the barbecue. My guy's back had these cool circles on it. And I'm like, I want that shit.
Yeah.
Right, you know?
I've had someone reached out and they were like, hey, do you guys just do like cupping? And I'm like, yeah, that's part of like the 5 minutes of the session, but yeah. And they're like, oh, awesome. And they were all interested. But I'm like, wait, what about like the cool part, like the exercise part?
Yeah, it's like I always try to like make silly analogies to get people to understand. Like sometimes it backfires because you're like, why are you being such a jerk? And it's like you wouldn't call like and be like the Ford dealer and be like, you guys got like tires?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they're like attached to the trucks.
Yeah.
Like, do you want a truck? Nah, just tires.
Yeah.
And you're like, I guess I could sell you some tires. I don't like, what are you going to do with them? I just want tires.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, fine. Here's 4 tires.
There's some people that like literally they're like, can we just do, once they get comfortable with me, they're like, can we just do like the hour of like tissue work? I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah,
sure.
you want a massage.
Yeah.
Like there's other people for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's funny.
I think the best part about being in a partnership with more forward thinking clinicians is that the whole goal should be that we just save each other time.
Right.
Right. Like if your highest billable service is manual therapy, because that's not something, let's say I would be know how to do, but B, legally be allowed to do. Mm-hmm. And now you don't have to worry about, coaching someone, through a kettlebell deadlift, and you can see more people through your highest value point, that's more beneficial. Right. And like, it's like, I try to get across the point too, is like your surgeon, all due respect, maybe I'm sure some of them do, doesn't know shit about lifting. Right. Like, and I wouldn't know what scalpel to use to cut open your shoulder either. Right. So like, let's just agree on that and then we'll move forward from there. So it's hard sometimes to communicate with people in that long because it's like, so-and-so told them, or my buddy who's an orthopedic surgeon said, and it's like, well then go ask him then. What are you asking me for?
Exactly.
Like,
my favorite's like the CBD oil rub. It's like, well, my uncle's cousin's nephew's friend said it worked for him. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't, cool. If that's what you want, here, rub it on. Yep, go for it.
Exactly. That I'm sure that's the root cause.
So one last thing, like in terms of this stuff, like what are some of those more things that, because there's some things that are legit, right? Like right. I don't want that last part to come across that I think cupping's bullshit or anything like that, because it has benefit.
Definitely.
But what are some of the things that you see you're like, that absolutely has nothing and people are obsessed with it?
Oh man, that's tough. I try to stay away, honestly.
It's a safe space.
Yeah. But damn, I mean, it depends how I'm feeling that day. I try to be more open-minded these days. But like the regular TENS unit, like, yeah, it might help a little bit and it's great to have it at home just like as an immediate backup, but like to rely on that to like fix your back pain, probably not. I love the foam roller for a lot of different reasons, but like rolling out your IT band, like in hopes that that's like the savior, or rolling even worse, like your lower back. Again, like that's not even the way that your vertebrae like to be pushed on. So like why slam that lower back more? So those two commonly are like, well, like people put too much trust in those. And then there's so many gadgets out there that are like there's like now 50 different variations of a Theragun, and they're a lot lighter. So like, why would you get like the $15 one on Amazon when you know that's not enough pressure? Those things kind of waste of money, in my opinion, like waste of time. That's all I can think of right now.
Yeah, I think for me it was, again, I think I like to pick on products just because like the kinesio tape stuff. I think like, again, I think it had a place, right. It had, and then suddenly it's like, every 9-year-old kid who can't do a push-up, had to have, red kinesio tape wrapped around his elbow. Right. And I'm like, what exercise does he need to do? I'm like, hey kid, can you do a push-up? No, that's what he needs to do. Yeah. He needs to do push-ups, chin-ups, and crawl.
Exactly.
Like, and once he can do that, then we'll look at, something else. And everything is about a product, the way it looks and what it does. And, I get it with social media. It's not easy, but.
When people ask me like, what do you think about X? And I'm like, well, if I thought it was that valuable, I would have it. So
Yeah, I struggle with that question as well. As, you know, if it comes to me in terms of like fat loss or training, like, what do you think about this? It's like, well, if I thought that was it, we'd be doing it. Like you are paying me money,
right?
So I would do like what I thought was best. But
exactly.
All right, so let's wrap it up there. I mean, I think we cover a lot of good stuff that people find interesting. So if people are looking for you, where can they find you?
Instagram would definitely be the best. Try to be as consistent as possible there. It's RSM_athlete_doc. And then the shared account is RSM Sports Med. And then the website is www.rsmsportsmed.com. And email, if you guys are looking to reach out, is drjeremy@rsmsportsmed.com.
Perfect, man. Well, until next time. Thanks.
Thank you.